There is one organism that could change the trajectory of climate change, not theoretically, measurably. In 2016, marine ecologists Dorothy Krauss-Jensen and Carlos Duarte published a study in Nature Geoscience. They calculated that wild seaweed forests across the world's oceans already remove approximately 173 million tons of carbon every single year. That is not a projection. That is a measurement. The organism responsible grows up to 2 feet per day. It needs no soil, no freshwater, no fertilizer, no pesticides, no arable land. It supports up to 1,000 species in a single ecosystem. It can be converted into food, fuel, fertilizer, bioplastic, and animal feed. And it is disappearing. Kelp forests have declined at an average rate of 1.8% per year across global coastlines. In Northern California, more than 95% of bull kelp forests have been lost since 2014. The crisis is not awareness. The crisis is priority. The United States government distributes $28 billion in annual farm subsidies. It has allocated less than 1% of its agricultural grants to seaweed aquaculture. In 2025, even that was described as a climate slush fund. And cut. The organism does not have a common name that does it justice. Most people call it seaweed. The scientific community divides it into brown, red, and green macroalgae. The largest and most productive species is giant kelp, Macrocystis pyrifera. It is not a plant. It has no roots, no vascular tissue, no flowers, no seeds. It is a protist, a photosynthetic organism that evolved independently from land plants, and it is one of the oldest living architectures on Earth. Its relationship with human civilization is not recent. It is ancient. In the Jomon period, more than 10,000 years ago, coastal communities in what is now Japan harvested seaweed from tidal zones. They did not plant it. They did not irrigate it. They walked into the shallows and cut it. It grew back, every time. By the Nara period, around 710 AD, the Japanese imperial court had classified seaweed as a taxable commodity. Nori, kombu, wakame. These were not luxuries. They were infrastructure. Entire coastal economies were built on an organism that asked for nothing and gave everything. Korea followed the same pattern. China followed. Indonesia built its largest coastal employment sector around tropical seaweed species. Today, more than 62,000 marine farming households in Indonesia produce an estimated 2 million tons of wet seaweed annually. The Philippines built entire rural economies on seaweed cultivation, with women farmers earning 20 to 40,000 pesos per month in regions where fishing barely covered basic needs. Asia understood something that the Western world did not. The ocean covers 71% of the Earth's surface. It contains the most productive photosynthetic organisms ever measured, and it requires nothing from the land to do so. No soil, no fresh water, no cleared forest, no plowed field, just salt water, sunlight, and time. The West looked at the same ocean and saw shipping lanes, oil deposits, and industrial fishing grounds. It did not see a farm. That difference in perception is now measurable in policy, in funding, and in carbon. The numbers are not ambiguous. Giant kelp, Macrocystis pyrifera, holds the Guinness World Record for the fastest growing seaweed on Earth. Its fronds grow up to 0.5 meter per day. That is roughly 2 feet every 24 hours. In a single growing season, a microscopic spore can develop into a structure exceeding 45 meters in length, 148 feet, taller than most trees on Earth. And it does this without a single root touching soil. Kelp does not absorb carbon dioxide through stomata like a tree. Every cell on its blade surface absorbs dissolved carbon dioxide directly from seawater. The efficiency is extraordinary. Research documented by NOAA, Greenwave, and multiple peer-reviewed sources confirms that kelp sequesters approximately 5 times more carbon per hectare than terrestrial forest. Krause-Jensen and Duarte quantified the global total in their 2016 Nature Geoscience paper. Wild macroalgae forests sequester approximately 173 million tons of carbon per year. The range spans 61 to 268 million tons. About 90% of this carbon is exported to the deep ocean, where it can remain sequestered for centuries. That number describes wild forests alone, not farms, not cultivated operations, wild growth on coastlines that no government has funded, managed, or expanded. The implication is that scaled seaweed aquaculture could multiply this figure dramatically, but carbon is only part of the equation. A single kelp forest supports up to 1,000 species: fish, invertebrates, marine mammals, sea otters, urchins, abalone. Oceanographic magazine described kelp forests as the rainforests of the sea, home to over 800 species of fish, invertebrates, and marine mammals. The Kelp Forest Foundation documented up to 1,000 species in healthy ecosystems. NOAA confirmed that kelp forests harbor a greater variety and higher diversity of plants and animals than almost any other ocean community. And the organism is not only useful alive. When harvested, seaweed becomes raw material for a staggering range of products. Alginates extracted from brown seaweed are used in ice cream, toothpaste, beer, cosmetics, pharmaceuticals, and wound dressings. Carrageenans from red seaweed stabilize dairy products, processed meats, and infant formula. Agar from red seaweed is used in microbiology, confectionery, and plant-based gelatin alternatives. Seaweed extracts are used as organic fertilizer, biostimulants, and soil conditioners. Studies published in multiple journals confirm that seaweed extract application improves crop yields, root development, and stress resistance. The bioplastic market alone is projected to grow from $412 million in 2025 to over $1 billion by 2034. Companies like Notpla in London and Sway in California are already replacing single-use petroleum plastics with seaweed-based alternatives that decompose in weeks. And in 2021, researchers at the University of California, Davis published a study that may be the most consequential finding of all. Lead author Brianna Roque and her team fed beef cattle small amounts of the red seaweed Asparagopsis taxiformis. Methane emissions from the cattle dropped by 82%, not in a laboratory, in a 21-week field trial. The Australian Broadcasting Corporation later reported an independent trial showing reductions of up to 86%. Livestock methane accounts for approximately 14.5% of all global greenhouse gas emissions. A single species of seaweed reduced it by more than 4/5. Correct that. It did not reduce methane production. It prevented the chemical reaction that creates methane in the rumen. The bromoform compound in Asparagopsis inhibits the enzyme that produces methane during digestion. The cow still eats. The cow still digests. The methane simply does not form. One organism, 5 times the carbon sequestration of trees, 82% reduction in livestock methane, 0 soil, 0 freshwater, 0 fertilizer, 0 land. Now follow the money. The United States government distributes approximately $28 billion per year in direct farm subsidies. The overwhelming majority goes to corn, soy, wheat, cotton, and rice. These are crops that require soil, freshwater, fertilizer, pesticides, heavy machinery, and enormous tracts of cleared land. They deplete topsoil. They drain aquifers. They generate agricultural runoff that flows into rivers, accumulates nitrogen and phosphorus, and feeds algal blooms that create ocean dead zones. The dead zone in the Gulf of Mexico spans approximately 5,800 square miles. It is caused primarily by fertilizer runoff from Midwestern corn and soy farms, the same farms that receive billions in federal subsidies. Seaweed does the opposite. It absorbs nitrogen and phosphorus from the water. A study highlighted by the Marine Biological Laboratory confirmed that seaweed farms could help remediate coastal dead zones by soaking up the exact nutrients that cause them. No-way fisheries confirm that when seaweed is harvested, it removes excess carbon and nitrogen from the water permanently. And yet, of $31.2 billion in grants awarded by the United States of Agriculture's Marketing Service between 2018 and 2023, only $261.7 million went to aquaculture. That includes all aquaculture, fish, shellfish, seaweed combined, less than 1%. A federal grant of $766,000 was awarded to Connecticut. Sea grant to help quadruple U.S. seaweed aquaculture volumes, $766,000, in a system that distributes $28 billion. That is not funding. That is a footnote. Asia understood this decades ago. 6 countries produce approximately 98% of all farmed seaweed on Earth: China, Indonesia, the Philippines, North and South Korea, Japan, and Malaysia. China alone accounts for over 60% of global production. Asia produces approximately 35 million tons per year. The United States produces almost none. Bren Smith, a former commercial fisherman from Newfoundland, saw this gap. He founded Greenwave and pioneered what he calls 3D ocean farming, a vertical underwater system that grows kelp, mussels, scallops, and oysters on ropes, suspended beneath the surface. No inputs, no feed, no fresh water, no arable land. The system filters water, sequesters carbon, and produces food simultaneously. No AA featured the model. The New York Times covered it. Smith wrote a book called Eat Like a Fish. He received a James Beard Foundation Leadership Award. And still, the federal government allocated less than 1%. In April 2025, the current administration described the $3.1 billion Climate Smart Commodities funding pool as a climate slush fund. Programs that supported seaweed aquaculture research, regenerative ocean farming pilots, and coastal resilience were defunded. The ocean covers 71% of the Earth's surface. It produces over half of the world's oxygen. It contains the fastest growing carbon sink ever measured. And the United States government decided it was a slush fund. This is not ignorance. This is arithmetic. The agricultural input industry, the fertilizer industry, the pesticide industry, and the fossil fuel industry all depend on land-based farming. They sell seeds, they sell chemicals, they sell diesel, they sell irrigation, equipment. Seaweed requires none of it. Every acre of ocean farm that replaces a conventional input is a lost customer, not for the farmer, for the supplier. The suppression is not dramatic. There's no banned document and no classified report. There's simply no funding, no infrastructure, no policy. For the most efficient carbon sink that has ever existed, the question then is, what can be done without government support? Seaweed farming requires less startup capital than almost any form of agriculture. Greenwave estimates that a small-scale 3D ocean farm can be launched for under $20,000. That includes seed, rope, buoys, and anchoring systems. No tractor. No irrigation, no barn, no greenhouse. The ocean provides the growing medium, the current provides the nutrients, the sun provides the energy. In temperate waters, sugar kelp, Saccharina latissima, is one of the most common farmed species. Seeds are outplanted on ropes in autumn. The kelp grows through winter and spring, reaching harvestable size by late spring. A single hectare of ocean surface can produce between 40 and 170 tons of fresh kelp per year, depending on species and location. The harvest has immediate commercial value. Fresh kelp can be sold to restaurants, processed into dried food products, ground into organic fertilizer, or converted into biostimulants for agricultural application. Studies confirm that seaweed extract improves root development, stress resistance, and nutrient uptake in crops ranging from wheat to tomatoes. For individuals without access to coastal water, seaweed-based products are already entering mainstream markets. Kelp-based fertilizer is available at most garden centers. Seaweed snacks are sold in every major grocery chain. Alginate is in the ice cream in most freezers. Carrageenan stabilizes the milk alternative in most coffee shops. And the methane application is scaling. Several companies, including CH4 Global and Symbrosia, are commercializing Asparagopsis production for livestock feed. Australia leads this effort. The potential market is enormous. There are approximately 1 billion cattle on Earth. If even a fraction of global herds received Asparagopsis supplementation, the reduction in atmospheric methane would be measurable at a planetary scale. Kelp forest restoration is also advancing. In California, scientists have removed over 5.6 million purple urchins to allow kelp regrowth. The Guardian described it as one of the largest and most successful kelp restoration projects in the world. In Tasmania, where giant kelp forests have declined by over 90% since the 1960s, the Institute for Marine and Antarctic Studies is breeding climate-resistant super kelp strains that can survive warmer waters. The organism does not ask for much. Give it clean water, give it sunlight, give it a surface to attach to, and stand back. The relevance of this organism is not historical, it is immediate. The global seaweed market is already worth approximately $12.8 billion. It is projected to reach $19.1 billion by 2034. The seaweed bioplastic market is projected to exceed $1 billion in the same time frame. The seaweed extract market was valued at $17.5 billion in 2024 and is expected to reach $20.9 billion by 2029. These are not speculative numbers. These are existing markets, growing markets, markets that currently rely on wild harvest and Asian aquaculture because the Western world has not built its own supply chain, and the carbon mathematics are urgent. Kelp forests are declining at 1.8% per year globally. In Northern California, 95% of bull kelp is gone. In Tasmania, 90% of giant kelp has vanished since the 1960s. In northwest Spain, 58% of kelp has been lost in 25 years. Warming oceans and urchin overpopulation are converting forests into barren rock. The organism that sequesters 173 million tons of carbon per year is shrinking. And the one intervention that could expand it, farming, receives less than 1% of agricultural funding in the world's largest economy. The cosmetics industry does not deny seaweed works. It uses it. The food industry does not deny seaweed works. It sells it. The agricultural input industry does not deny seaweed works. It competes with it. And that is the answer. Seaweed does not fail the economics test. It fails the dependency test. It cannot be sold with a recurring subscription of chemicals, seeds, and equipment. It grows. It regenerates. It asks for nothing. And an economic model built on selling inputs has no mechanism to profit from an organism that requires none. 71% of this planet is water. Beneath that water, forests grow that no one planted. They absorb carbon that no machine can match. They grow at speeds that no tree can replicate. They support ecosystems that no technology can replace. And they ask for nothing in return. No soil, no fresh water, no fertilizer, no subsidy, no permission. For 10,000 years, coastal civilizations understood this. They harvested the ocean without depleting it. They built economies without destroying the foundation beneath them. And then the modern world decided that farming means land. that carbon means trees, that solutions mean technology, and it looked away from that 71% of the planet that was already doing the work. The kelp is still there, in every temperate ocean. On every coastline where the water is clean enough and the temperature is cool enough, it is still growing. 2 feet per day, 148 feet per season, 5 times more carbon per hectare than the forests we spend billions to plant. It does not need a government to fund it. It needs a generation to notice it. This is not a forgotten plant. This is a forgotten ocean. If this vault opened something for you, share it with someone who still thinks climate solutions are expensive. Subscribe if you have not already. The next vault opens soon.